This program is sponsored by Futures Unbounded and is responsible for its content.
Welcome, fellow humans, to the Writing is on the Wall radio broadcast, coming to you from WHKW 1220, a Salem radio station. If you wish to call in and ask for clarification or to comment, please call 888-677-9673. Once again, that phone number is 888-677-9673. Please address me as TA, for I am the teacher's assistant. And that phone number, once again, is 888-677-9673. This program is a non-religious, non-spiritual investigation of everything we can discern that was created, recorded, and modeled for us in the Bible. Those are all very important. As you know, I've been trying to find ways that will shake people from their preconceived notions. The greatest advice one man ever gave another is in Proverbs 3:5, and that's where Solomon upgraded his father's advice in Psalm 27:14, and that is to trust in the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul, and do not rely on your own understanding. And unfortunately, we don't listen. We think we know what's going on. We've got a handle on it. We heard from so-and-so, or our preacher said this, or whatever it happened to be. All religions are man-made. God does not have a religion. As a matter of fact, he permitted us to make religions to add another obstacle for us to overcome. And it's a huge learning experience. We have not overcome that obstacle yet. So in trying to get the word out, I've been reaching out to people. I shared with you that Dennis said that he will eventually come on my show when Dennis Prager, when his book on Deuteronomy is published, and they'll do it through Salem, and we will share time together on the air. And I hope to find out far enough in advance of that to ballyhoo that and get more people listening, if at all possible. Because Dennis is an intelligent and capable man and a clear thinker. Dennis is a few years older than me, and he depended heavily on his background and his upbringing, which is understandable completely. But because of that, he has a very large blind spot, and that is his conception of what is and should be started with basically the Jewish religion, started with Deuteronomy, the fifth of the 5 books. But Genesis was historical for him, and they all were, but he actually lives through and has worked through the other 4 books of the Pentateuch. And so that's why he feels as well-grounded as he is, and he is well-grounded. Unfortunately, he didn't get the point. And I'm going to tell you the point, but you're probably not going to understand it either because it's so short. It's actually written in the Bible, in the New Testament, John 7:24. Jesus was explaining to people, he had just come to the Feast of Booths, and he did so quietly as an individual instead of publicly, and for a purpose, because as he told his disciples, it is not yet my time. So, but while he was there, he laid some pretty heavy stuff down. And one of those things was John 7:24, which does not seem to be of huge import, but it is. This is the entire reason that the Bible, Old Testament and New, was written for you. The entire reason. God wanted you to focus on this. Now, you can unpack this. You should unpack this. Don't just, oh, that's nice. Now, this is seriously the entire reason the Bible was written. Well, there's more to the Bible than this, but this is the reason that pen was put to paper, if you will. John 7:24 reads, "Stop judging by outward appearance. Instead, judge correctly." Well, the rest of the Bible, quite a bit of the Bible, tells you what judging correctly means. And we didn't get it. Even after Jesus, we didn't get it. And that's because it is so foreign to us. It is nothing we know. It's not as though, oh yeah, so what? No big deal. No, we don't understand. And that is the reason that Jesus was sent, and that's also in John chapter 7, sent to earth by God. He had a job to do. He was here to model the objective decision-making system, to show you that humans could do it and that it would change your life, and the truth will set you free. One of my mother's favorite sayings was, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." And I always wondered about that, but the older I got, the more people I see doing things that they think is good for them and good for you. And it's not. It's totally off the subject. And that's the definition of sin, missing the mark. Well, most people miss the mark because they don't even aim. They just live their lives as though, I can do whatever I want. And you can. You definitely can. You were given free will. But you were also given the opportunity to learn and to grow and to succeed. And unfortunately, very, very few people try that. Well, we're going to go into that in greater depth, and I'm going to try and explain it to you. I'm going to use Jesus' words, which are always the best way. But hopefully that will lodge in your mind. The seed of information will lodge there so that at one day it will grow and produce. But for today, what I want to start off with is, since I'm having trouble getting people to relate to what I say in a unbiased manner, especially when I talk about the Bible. The only people who want to listen to me are Christians who are religious, and B, they want to listen with their religious ears on. Not at all the way Jesus told them to do. He told them to come as little children. And of course, that's nice. But they don't realize that that's the only way to access this information. So I wrote a letter to Jordan Peterson. And Professor Peterson is a Canadian professor of psychology who was lambasted by the left and fought back, and did so intelligently, clearly thinking about what he said and what they needed to hear, and they could not refute it. They could gnash their teeth and moan and groan, and they didn't like it, and they thought it was this, and they thought it was that. But the logic, of course, was unassailable because Professor Peterson is a clear thinker. So I wrote to him, and I'm going to read that to you now. Jordan, please assist me by getting this conversation, quote, out there, unquote. We are at the failure point in our civilization, and we need to go forward consciously. Yes, we must actually make a plan and enact it in order to grow up. Just kicking the can down the road will no longer work. I've read the Bible for content, purposefully eschewing any and all religious memes, dogma, and accommodations. What the Bible says is that an alien presence has cast seeds into a growth medium and is awaiting the results. Go ahead and get Matthew chapter 13 up, because that's what we're going to talk about afterwards. This presence will harvest, quote unquote, for future use, the plants that successfully overcome all the obstacles that their environment throws at them. I want many more people to join me in redeveloping our society to function as the competent means for assisting us all to consciously work on improving our outlooks and abilities. I would be happy to explain to you how religious accommodation actually was used to create the, quote, justification, unquote, for the left more than 500 years ago. I told him I have a radio show on Salem 1220 AM in Cleveland on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. You can also access my shows at www.thewritingonthewall.net. The current, quote, search for meaning, unquote, ignores the elephant in the room, which is outlined and supported in the Bible. God downloaded us, quote unquote, into developed human bodies to tie us to this plane of reference/experience so that we might use the opportunity to overcome obstacles. I hope you're understanding this. This is just a letter to him, and hopefully he will respond and ask me what I meant by this or that or the other thing. But for you, you should understand that this is the reason that we are here on earth. To continue, the original Testament was written to provide us with a tool, examples of good and bad behavior, access, overview, etc., and we still didn't respond sufficiently. Jesus was held up to us as an example that a human could actually switch from the subjective form of decision-making that he and we all are born into over to the objective form of decision-making that allows us to switch perspectives and look at what we are doing as though we were observing our actions and attitudes from without. I wrap it up by saying all of humanity will benefit from a clear-thinking individual of your renown taking up this particular gauntlet, and I can inform your search if we can get together. Sincerely, T.A. Well, now to unpack that. I've read the Bible for content. That statement is what Jesus told his disciples and apostles to do. To look at what he was saying and doing, and to come to the situation as little children, without artifice, without preconceived notions, without trying to tie it to anything. Judge the Bible on what the Bible says, not what you expect, what somebody else told you it meant, what somebody else wants you to believe because they believe it. Only use the words that are in the Bible to relate to the Bible. I know that's only in one small sentence, but that's what I meant by it. I really did have to roll back and release and drop all religious memes, dogma, and accommodations. Now, it wasn't easy. It took years. Every time I thought I was free, I'd found that I had another one, expectation given to me by, as far back as Sunday school and all the different retreats I went on and the sermons that I heard and the Bible studies that I studied. There's an awful lot of Christian thought that, well intended, is not anything but an obstacle. And that's why I read my mom's favorite, or I guess I could recited it, my mother's favorite saying, and that is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The people in church want you to feel good and want you to feel at home and accepted, so they say things that they feel, and unfortunately, it's not reflected in the Bible. The good feeling might be, but not for that reason. And you really should work at reading the Bible and understanding it just by what is in the Bible. So one of the things we're going to have to get to is redeveloping our society to function. We're going to have to consciously work at becoming grown-ups, which is what God asked us to do, and which so many people are resisting. Now, I mentioned the search for meaning in the letter, and that's because a lot of the speakers that Jordan Peterson has had on his podcast are talking about meaning and the search for meaning. And this seems to be a theme in the intelligentsia, quote-unquote, community, at least the conservative one. And while the search for meaning on the anti-conservative or left-leaning is to righteously eradicate whatever they don't like. Because if they don't like it, it must be bad. The fact that they have no idea why they don't like it, or they just ginned up that kind of thing because it sounded good, never seems to impinge on them. So it's a problem that we need to overcome as a civilization. And that is what I want him to help me work on. Because we are going to have to work on it. I'm going to read to you from Matthew 13, as promised. Jesus, this starts 13:3, and this is his first parable in that chapter. Listen, a farmer went to plant seed. Some seeds were planted along the road, and birds came and devoured them. Other seeds were planted on rocky ground, where there was little soil. The plants sprouted quickly because the soil wasn't deep, but when the sun came up, they were scorched. They withered because their roots weren't deep enough. Other seeds were planted among thorn bushes, and the thorn bushes grew up and choked them. But other seeds were planted on good ground and produced grain. They produced 100, 60, or 30 times as much as was planted. Let the person who has ears listen. So this parable was started with and ended with the term listen. Pay attention. Disciples asked him, "Why do you use stories as illustrations when you speak to people?" Jesus answered, "Knowledge about the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but has not been given to the crowd." That's us. Those who understand these mysteries will be given more knowledge, and they will excel in understanding them. However, some people don't understand these mysteries. Even what they understand will be taken away from them. This is why I speak to them this way. They see, but they are blind. They hear, but they don't listen. They don't even try to understand. So they make Isaiah's prophecy come true. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, but it's not over. After he recites Isaiah's prophecy to them about them not being able to see, being closed-minded, he then wraps it up, starting with verse 18. Listen to what the story about the farmer means. Someone hears the word about the kingdom but doesn't understand it. The evil one comes at once and snatches away what was planted in him. This is what the seed planted along the road illustrates. The seed planted on rocky ground is the person who hears the word and accepts it at once with joy. I know someone like that. Since he doesn't have any root, he lasts only a little while when suffering or persecution comes along because of the word. He immediately falls from faith, and the seed planted among thorn bushes is another person who hears the word, but the worries of life and the deceitful pleasures of riches choke the word so that it can't produce anything. Wow, how many people are living through that? But the seed planted on good ground is the person who hears and understands the word. Believe me, you got to work at it. This type produces crops. They produce 160 or 30 times as much as was planted. So that is the first parable and Jesus's explanation and elucidation to his own disciples. But there is another one in that same chapter. And that is something that we're going to study also, but probably going to have to wait until after the break. So we're going to start in verse 31, where Jesus uses another illustration and about seeds purposefully planted and sealed where someone plants weeds. So, on the other side of the break, we will study that. But remember John 7:24, which I moved, but it is that stop judging by outward appearances, instead judge correctly. And that's the reason for the Bible, and we will go over the rationale also after the break. So I'll talk to you after the break. Thank you so much, and read the Bible.
Swamp, fake news, racist hats? Are you afraid to believe anymore? Well, let me tell you of one brave soul who, like David, slew Goliath. The true story of one man's fight against greed, corruption, and insatiable ambition in small-town Ohio, Checkmate reveals why passion and integrity are rare in the corridors of swing state politics. If you want to hear the truth, how the swamp operates in Ohio with all the political corruption in real time, get Steve Krause's tell-all true life story, Checkmate, One Man's Fight Against Political Corruption, available on Amazon. As a newly elected state representative, Steve takes you behind the scenes, behind the closed doors, and rips back the curtain to expose all the lies, the deceit, and power-hungry gamesmanship. Checkmate reads like a TV drama, but it's not.
Once you start it, you won't be able to put it down.
Checkmate, One Man's Fight Against Political Corruption by Steve Krause, available on Amazon today. Be afraid. Be very afraid. There are those in Washington who want the IRS to take more of your hard-earned money. Are you tired of being the perpetual cash cow for every scheme, unreasonable program, and for all the fraud, waste, and abuse in our system? Well, good news. I can help. George Satari has almost 40 years of experience helping people like you keep more of what you make. It makes no sense that the more you make, the more they take. Let George help you keep your money away from the government bureaucratic waste and in your pocket. Call 216-651-1120 right now and schedule your free consultation today. Instead of a victim, you'll be the victor. With many success stories, George helps with tax planning, estate planning, financial and business analysis, and more. The new tax law has many ways to save money with retirement planning, accelerated depreciation, up to 20% exception of net earnings, and so much more. Call 216-651-1120. That's 216-651-1120. You earn it, we'll help you keep it. That's George Satari, CPA, 216-651-1120.
We're still in Matthew 13. Now, Jesus used different illustrations. The reason we're in there is because we've got more to go. But I want to give you an idea of what the illustrations meant. Starting with verse 31, Jesus gave the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone planted in a field. It's one of the smallest seeds. However, when it has grown, it is taller than the garden plants. It becomes a tree that is large enough for birds to nest in its branches. Now, this doesn't sound like a very important one, right? I mean, there's no conclusion. There's no example. Well, the fact is that the United States of America was planted because of Christians. The United States is the homeland for Christians. Now, we've let other religions come in. We have not worked as hard as we should. Most of those religions are don't claim to be religions, like various forms of leftism, Nazism. They're all religions. They all started in the same place. And we'll go over that, but not tonight. That place, if you're interested, was a rationale that was given by the guy who started it in Geneva in 1546. Like I said, we'll go over that, but not tonight. Tonight, I want you to understand that the small seed that was planted, the mustard seed, that became a huge plant that people could nest in, you could look at that as religions. The seed was the Bible, and the religions used the Bible. You could look at that as civilization, because certainly people have nested in the branches. And it's all because of the opportunity that God gave humans back in the Garden of Eden. And I think I've explained to you what that opportunity was, to live and learn and grow, and to try our best to understand what it is that God wanted of us and why he wanted it. And I've discovered that, and I'm trying to get that information out. Well, the second part of that interlude between two seed stories in Matthew 13 was about the kingdom of heaven. Starting with verse 33. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman mixed into a large amount of flour until the yeast worked its way through all the dough. Now, it takes time for the yeast to work its way through the dough, which means it will act on the warmth and it will act on the food that is in the bread dough and change it slightly so that it will rise. But it takes time for that to happen. It's not immediate. And that is something that you need to understand. Jesus' words was not, people didn't immediately changed their lives. One or two did. But his words have been brought down to us so that we can use it as the example that he was sent here by God to provide. And that is that humans could actually switch from the subjective form of decision making, which is, what do I think is best? What do I like? What do I want? What will do me good? What will make me feel more superior or righteous or whatever? What do my buddies like? How will people look at me better? All those things are subjective. Jesus did not care about any one of those, and really, you're going to have to leave all that behind if you want to understand what it was that Jesus was talking about, the objective point of view. Now, why would you want to do that? You may feel as though you're part of a team, interwoven in the fabric of humanity, because everybody feels and acts the way you do, except, of course, Jesus didn't. And you may like the way that Jesus did it. You may laud it. You may say, oh, how wonderful that was. I wish I could be like that. Well, you can if you have the courage to step out. But that's the problem. You have to understand how to do it. And the New Testament, where it's giving you examples. John 3 explained that it's like being born again. And no, you don't physically go back into the womb, but you cross a line, and all of a sudden, all the cares and worries and concerns, and do I fit in? How do I look? Am I acting right? Will people accept me? All of that stuff just falls by the wayside. Once you have crossed that line, committed, and crossed that line, and become an objective thinker. Now, most people think what the Bible wants you to commit to is being a Christian, and by the subjective definition, which is being a nice person and doing things for other people and giving of yourself and your alms and your family, tithing. See, all that is important to people who think subjectively. But when you cross that line and trust in the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul, and you become an objective thinker and decision maker, you realize you really, truly are set free from all those concerns. But then, eventually, you will share the same concern that Jesus had when he went back to the garden at Gethsemane. Lord, Lord, take this cup from me. Jesus wanted to stick around. He was sure that he could provide more help to people on the ground if only he could stay. But in the end, he made the right decision, which was, thy will be done. And of course, he went to the cross and was crucified. And yes, he rose. He was dead and buried, and he rose. And he went and talked to people to try and give them a heads up. But of course, the only thing they could see really was the miracles. Not only the miracles performed while he was alive, but the miracle of his rebirth. And that was what they focused on. The rebirth Jesus wanted them to focus on was their own rebirth. And that is the thing that I am trying my best to get across to you. I would like to be one of those people who manufactured 100 or 60 or 30 or 1,000 or 1,000,000. I would like to have as many grains brought to the Lord as I can. And that's why I come here and do this radio show. And that's why I have the website, so that people can see. Now, it's not a religious thing at all. It is helping people, getting them to prepare themselves to commit to being objective and to removing the burden from their souls and their hearts. Not easy. Well, there was in that same chapter in Matthew another seed story. And that is the meaning of the weeds in the wheat. Starting with verse 36. When Jesus had sent the people away, he went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, "Explain what the illustration of the weeds in the field means." He answered, "The one who plants the good seeds is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are those who belong to the kingdom. The weeds are those who belong to the evil one. The enemy who planted them is the devil." Well, I've got a caller, and I'd love to hear what they have to say, so we're going to break from this. We will return before the end of the program, because what Jesus is trying to get across is extremely important. Hello, caller. How are you this evening?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Great, because I was listening quite intently, and I think that God's word is alive. When you read his word, you must be in the spirit. A person can read that word many, many times, and it means nothing to them. And then one day, bingo, they get it.
This
That
is
is the point.
This is Mary Grace, isn't it?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Yes, you're right.
I am blessed, highly favored, deeply loved by God. But how well do you know Cuyahoga County?
Reasonably. I don't know about how well that is, but what did you have in mind?
I studied. And the point is, we have the IX Center, and we could put so much food into that place. We could put so many jobs in that place to the glory of God himself. And the thing is, when I look at things like that, I see things. And I see things where they're not. I see a building, and then I see all these beautiful things that could be in that building. But of course, people choose what they're going to put there. But my point is this: with Gates buying all our property, and he wants to buy, he's the biggest landowner all in across America, 8,000 acres just in Ohio. Mary doesn't play there. I'm an antithetical writer, and I would be putting food into that place, and I'd be growing arrow gardens and put every kind of business. I could fill it up like crazy. We'd have everybody working together to do God's work. That's how I think.
All right, Mary Grace, thank you so much for your call.
Well, I'm listening.
Thank you. Talk to you again sometime. Well, that was important. That's what Mary Grace sees as important. Feeding people is important so that they can continue, but what Jesus said about the water that they'll never thirst once they drink of, that's what I'm trying to get people to pay attention to. The food that will feed them forever. So, I'll continue with Jesus' words, starting with verse 37. Jesus answered, "The one who plants the good seeds is the Son of Man." Now, this is Jesus speaking about himself. "The field is the world. The good seeds are those who belong to the kingdom. The weeds are those who belong to the evil one." Today we call them leftists. "The enemy who planted them is the devil." And unfortunately, that's correct. Look to Ephesians 2:2 to get an update, if you will. "The harvest is the end of the world. The workers are angels. Just as weeds are gathered and burned, so it will be at the end of time. The Son of Man will send his angels. They will gather everything in his kingdom that causes people to sin and everyone who does evil. The angels will throw them into a blazing furnace. People will cry and be in extreme pain there. Then the people who have God's approval will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Let the person who has ears listen. All right, something for you to understand is there should be more of us. More people working to understand what it is that God wants and why he wants it, and why he wants you to work on yourself to overcome the natural obstacles and the ones that you have put up for yourself. After all, doesn't God deserve our first fruits intellectually? Being complacent and lazy is what the third servant did when he went and buried it. Don't be the third servant. Be the first or the second servant. I want to be the one that gets as many people to bear fruit as possible. I want to be the good farmer. So that is probably more information than you were expecting to get, even on my program. But the problem is that when all the weeds are gathered and burned, a lot of those will be people that I know. People who hardened their heart, closed their ears, and did not work hard to try and understand the Bible. And I will be sorry for them, and I'm not going to stop trying to get them to understand and to give up their preconceived notions. But at the same time, we are individuals and we cross that line alone. God and Jesus, the angels of man, etc., are all on the other side already, waiting for us. It's up to us to cross that line. And the only way that I know to do it is the way that Jesus showed. Now, the Bible is here, the Old Testament and the New. And the New Testament is important. But unfortunately, the religions have taken over so that people don't really know what's in the Bible. I was at a Bible study, and the gentleman, one of my friends, was telling me God and Jesus are the same. Okay, what do you mean? God was here on the earth in Jesus' body while Jesus was on earth. I said, all of God was here and encapsulated in Jesus' body? Yes. I said, why would you think that? Oh, because they're one and the same. I said, well, there's nowhere that the Trinity is listed or even hinted at in the Bible. For we are the ones who chose to put them together into a Godhead or a Godhood to help us to explain to one another what it is that is happening around us. So to put too much faith in your own understanding is exactly what Proverbs 3:5 is warning us against. Trust in the Lord. Now, Paul said it in 1 Thessalonians 5. And I've got that here because I love it so much. He says, be ready for the day of the Lord. At least that's the way it's characterized in this particular translation. But starting with verse 19, 1 Thessalonians 5, Paul was instructing the Thessalonians, don't put out the Spirit's fire. Don't despise what God has revealed. Instead, test everything. Now, Paul didn't say question everything. He said test it. You've got to question it in order to test it, but you can do that internally. But once you have questioned it, you have to test it. You have to work at it. You have to prove to yourself which side of the coin you are going to land on, what decision you will make. What will you choose to live by? He finishes up verse 21 by saying, hold on to what is good. And in verse 22, he says, keep away from every kind of evil. Wow, talk about words to the wise, you know? But that's it. You need to make the decision about what is and what should be and what will be and what will make you up. Now, I've worked on becoming me ever since I was a child. It was always explained to me that I am the person that I will become, not just because of my nature, not just because of my nurture, but because of the person I choose to live to be. So if I don't like what I'm doing, or the way I look, or act, or react to certain stimulus, that's me, and that's all me. And no one is responsible for that other than me. Everybody has things happen in their life that is unfortunate. Some more than others. Some are harmed by it more than others. I do not have a Teflon soul, although someone has mentioned that to me in the past. It's just that when you really seriously work at understanding what's in the Bible and why God put it there, how can you feel anything but enlightened, assisted, informed, cherished, cared about? God cared about us enough to give us not only the opportunity, but guidance. Now, as Jesus pointing out, we are probably nearing the end of the term of our opportunity. My guesstimation from the Bible is 80 to 100 years. And we've got a lot of work to do between now and then. And we've got to bring this to the forefront and consciously choose to work on it. But I think that there could be an awakening, and a lot of people could be brought to see the deciding line and to make that commitment and inform themselves to the point where they will willingly walk across that line from subjective to objective decision makers. Now, why is that important? Well, now that you've asked, let's go to Matthew 25. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and that is, it's the part with the three servants. The master went on the journey, and the man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put the money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 bags more. verse 18. But the man who had received one bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Very important you pay attention to that. Verse 21, Matthew 25. That's why God has given us the opportunities, planted us here on earth, given us plenty of opportunities to grow and overcome obstacles. And it's not just the fact that we were planted in the good area. It's also the fact that we chose to react to our surroundings in a way that would maximize our opportunities to overcome the obstacles we were presented with. And that's what God wants. And the reason he wants us to grow into that is because he has stuff for us to do. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Well, we need to get more people to that point where they understand what it is that they are doing and why they are doing it and what they need to do in order to transition to where they can get to the point where they can make the decision to cross that line and become an objective decision maker. The freedom on the other side of the line is unbelievable. And acceptance is immediate. You no longer sin because you no longer have any desires for anything that would harm another person or would keep them any further away from God. So it's time for me to wrap up for today. And thank you all for joining. Mary Grace, thank you for calling. These will be on my website also. Over the ensuing weeks, I'm going to try and develop more opportunities for people to assist in getting the word out. And anything you can think of, please let me know. The writingonthewall.net website will get a message to me. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
This program has been sponsored by George Satari, CPA.